Today I'm going to show you how to go from an empty directory to a fully functioning Flappy Bird game. There's no libraries and no engines required. You will just be using CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. Try it out and see if you can beat my high score. Let's get into it. Today we are going to be building Flappy Bird. This is the final working version of the game. You can see we have a scoring system, we have a collision detection, and we have a high score screen at the end. Let's go ahead and get started and see how you can do this yourself. To start off with, you're going to create a new repo with this. So I'm going to go ahead and CD back a little. I'm going to use git init, and I'm going to call this one mini gamies. I've just run out of ideas here. So I'm going to call it that. And now I'm going to CD into that location. And now I can run code dot to pull open a new window here. In this new window, I'm going to get started by creating the structure of the repo. So at first, I want to add a games folder so I can have multiple games. I want to add the Flappy Bird folder so I can have the Flappy Bird specific games. And then I'm going to add the assets for Flappy Bird specifically. I'm also going to create a new file underneath Flappy called the index.js. I have it specifically under Flappy because I want to have separate folders for each game. And then I will create a README file. I'm going to create a new file for the index.html, and then I'm going to create a styles.css file. The styles.css file is going to have an S at the end because I'm going to use it for all of the different games that I'm going to develop and that you can develop too. Be sure to check out the link in the description to get the latest code from the repo. And for the assets, I would recommend doing the same. I'm going to pull these over from my other project so that it's easy for me to grab those. And we can see we have a background for Flappy Bird. We have the Flappy Bird itself. We have a pipe on the bottom and a pipe on the top. We don't want pipes to just be the same all the way across. We want it to go up and down. So that's why we have separate pipes for those there. For the CSS file, we are going to have a couple of basic things. We have the full page to be this section right here. We're going to be using no margin, no padding, 100% height, and we're going to use display of flex. We're also going to justify center for the items and the content, and you can kind of pick whatever color you want. I'm just going to use this default color. And then for the canvas itself, this is what's going to be displaying Flappy Bird. We have a border of 2 pixels that will go around this section, and that'll be all black, and we will see that here in a little bit. For that canvas, we will define it in the index.html file. It's a typical English index.html file. We have UTF-8 code, and we use viewport to grab the width of the device. So if you want to use your iPad, your phone, your laptop, your computer, whatever you're using, it will grab the device width, and then it'll use that 1.0 scale for that. We're also calling the styles.css. That way we can have the correct formatting. And then we are creating our canvas here with the ID of game. And then for our source, you can kind of just start typing out. So we have games, Flappy, and then index.js. You can kind of just go through it like that and make sure you have the right location. If you don't have the right location, you won't see your game. And then for our canvas here, ID equals game. We're going to reference that here in a second. Let's go into our index.js file. I'm going to start with a little bit of code here just to kind of show you what's going on, and then we will build some of the more complex code into this. So this is the basic here. We have the game, which I just showed you in the index.html. That's the reference here under the canvas. We're going to pull the context of the canvas, and it's going to be a 2D rendering. We're going to have the width and the height set to these pixels. And then we're going to pull in the images using these variables here and these locations, which I have under the assets. We're then going to create our bird variable with the height and width defined here, and we're going to use the 1/8 and 1/3 of the canvas for the height and the width, as well of the X and Y coordinates. We're then going to create some pipes, and we're going to have some gaps between the pipes. We're going to have gravity enforced on the bird, and then we're going to have a background and our bird image. So I will show you what this looks like currently, and then I will show you what it looks like if you accidentally mess up the width or the height of your bird. So this is what you want the game to look like, okay? You want the game to just be the bird small in the upper left corner or in the upper third of the page. But if you accidentally did canvas.width, which is what I did at first, you will get a rude awakening whenever you open this up because that is a large bird. It's taken up the whole size of the screen. So we can just go back and make that small change there, and that'll fix that. We also have the pipe spawning. We have an update section, which will update the bird's velocity and the bird's y coordinates with the gravity, and the y would go up about the same amount that the velocity goes. We're then going to draw the pipes. We're going to loop through the game, and we're going to check whenever spacebar is pressed to increase the velocity by the jump force. And then we are going to load images. We have this section here so that we can load multiple images, so we can have them all loaded at once. We don't want to load the page unless all the images are loaded. Now for the game loop, we want to actually update the game, and we're going to look for a request of the animation for the game loop. So we're going to make sure that we call that here. And now that we've called that, we should be able to see if we rerun the index.html. And for those of you that don't have open in default browser by default, you can go down to the extensions here and you can just install this open in default browser. It's really helpful for just opening and testing your code out. But as you can see, we now have the bird falling with gravity and falling endlessly. So we're going to fix that a little bit here. Instead of just letting it infinitely loop, we're going to add a couple of new sections. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add the pipes to the update so that they'll move left and right, or I guess all the pipes will only move to the left, but they'll go up and down as they go to the left and then exit the screen. All right, so to add the pipes, we needed to update this update command. We originally only had the velocity y and the bird's y-axis. We now added a timer for the pipes so that they'll rotate at a consistent speed. We also changed this to rotate by 1.5 pixels to the left. And then we have it saying that whenever well, this will be used later for scoring. I should have gotten rid of that, but this section right here to remove off-screen pipes will say once this pipe is off the screen, we don't want to see it anymore. And if we now run this index.html, we should see the bird and the pipes, but I'm very obviously going through the pipes, so that is not working as expected. We need to make a small change here to add collisions into this. Let's go ahead and navigate back to our section. All right, so we are adding this section right here for the collision check. We're going to say that if it's in this range, we will have the X range, the top and the bottom of the pipes, and we will say if it's in the range, then say game over. And this is the ground or the ceiling. This is the X and the top or bottom. Whenever the game over actually happens, we want to make sure that we will be able to reset the game. So I'm going to create a reset game command here. This function is just going to set everything back to the default. So 1/3 the screen, zeros for everything, and then game over equal to false. We also have a score here, which I was adding in. So let's go ahead and add a score and game over section up here to the very top in our variables. Okay, so for our variables, we are going to have this game over set to false by default. We always want the score to be 0. And then for our high score, we're going to grab the highest item that we have so far. We're then going to put our score in our background section. I'm just putting it in the background section. It doesn't really matter which section you put it in, but I always want to see a score in the upper left-hand corner. And I think even if it's a 0 by default, if for some reason something isn't looking correctly, it'll be nice to have it load when the background loads. So before we requested the update and then the animation after we went through all these sections, now we want to have an if statement. We're going to say that if the game is not over, then we want to continue to go through the loops of the request animation frame so that the background is updating and the pipes and the bird are all updating and moving. Otherwise, we want to draw game over. And for game over, it's just going to be a function that's just text. It's just going to say your highest score and your current score, whether you had the highest score or not. Now we're going to adjust our event listener a little bit so that it will actually reset the game rather than just allowing you to press the space bar over and over. So now you'll press the space bar, but if the game is over, it'll reset the game when you press space bar rather than doing anything else. I'm going to save this and we can go ahead and look. I think I'm missing something, but let's just see how the game's looking so far. We have a score here and we have collision detection working, but the score is not actually updating. So let's go back and update our scoring section, which is within our update function. So this section right here is for scoring. Our scoring section is pretty simple here. We're just going to increase the score by 1 every time we pass a pipe. And then if our score is greater than the high score, we're going to set our high score equal to the new score. And we're always going to keep our high score in our storage. So now if we go back to our index.html, we should see this working with scores increasing. And now whenever we go through this, we can see, okay, we got 7. and our high score said 7. Now if we get 0, it still keeps our high score, and that's how that's working. I'm going to go ahead and run this for a little bit and see how high of a score I can actually get, and I will see you in a little bit. Alright, I was hoping for 100, but I got 87. If you played this out yourself as well, be sure to leave your score in the comments down below. And while you're there, if you could hit the like button, it does greatly help me in the videos and the YouTube algorithm. Even if you hit the dislike button, it helps me as well. And if you want to stay tuned for next week's video, be sure to hit the subscribe button because we will be building another game next week. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.